Do you see how it looks to some people that there's one rule for you in terms of being able to claim this stuff that other people...
So this latest insane confession from Keir Starmer has left everyone stunned, and rightfully so. What Starmer just admitted could be the final nail in the coffin for Britain's future. We're talking about a government that's barely holding itself together. With the economy on the brink, rising costs and political instability, people across the country are left wondering if things will ever improve. And honestly, if Starmer's leadership continues down this chaotic path, we could be facing some truly dark days ahead. His policies are now under intense scrutiny, and it seems like there's no real plan to pull the nation out of this mess. The fear is real, and it's spreading fast. Could this be the moment where Britain's decline becomes irreversible? It's not looking good, and time is running out. Let's break it down.
Well, I spoke earlier in the show about the left's push to divide us by race, and finally, we've actually got someone from the left making a sensible decision. Maybe. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said the Brits will not be paying reparations for slavery and climate change. His comments came ahead of the King's Heads of Commonwealth meeting happening in Samoa right now.
All right, let's start off with Keir Starmer dropping an unexpected bombshell about the Commonwealth and the UK's historical involvement in the slave trade. You'd think a modern-day leader might offer some form of reparations or, at the very least, an apology, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because Starmer has made it clear that he is not here for the past. When the Commonwealth Summit brought up the discussion of reparations, Starmer pulled a total U-turn and said, "No, not on my watch." Instead, he wants to focus on current and future-facing challenges. And, yeah, we get it. Climate change and global finance are important topics, but slavery isn't just some side note in history. Starmer's refusal to even consider compensation for the descendants of enslaved people has stirred up a major controversy. 5 of his own Labour Party MPs have been pushing for reparations, but Starmer is standing firm, leaving a lot of people wondering what he's trying to avoid.
Oh my goodness, where do you start? Not even the most loyal party member, lifelong socialists who have spent decades stuffing envelopes to spread the word, could have anticipated such a disastrous beginning to this Labour administration. I actually feel sorry for Labour supporters, Labour voters, Labour activists, because it's my view that they've been let down by a charlatan leader in Sir Keir Starmer, who had no plan and is already horribly out of his depth. Now, I voted Labour in 1997, when their anthem was "Things can only get better." But after just 100 days under Sir Keir Starmer, Labour are playing a very different tune. Now, we're on the road to hell.
But this isn't just about reparations. Starmer's stance is being seen as dismissive of one of the darkest chapters in British history. Instead of addressing the calls for reparations head-on, he basically said, "Let's not talk about it." And that's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Now, let's shift gears to something equally wild: Keir Starmer's insane love affair with freebies. I'm talking about luxury suites, VIP tickets and penthouse stays, all while he's supposedly for the people. This is where things get crazy. So, what's going on? Well, Starmer's been at the centre of a scandal over his obsession with luxury. Picture this. He's rocking designer suits that cost a jaw-dropping $32,000, and his glasses are worth $2,485. While the average Brit is struggling with inflation and tax hikes, Starmer is out here looking like $1 million. And that's not even the craziest part.
Describe yourself as working class. Sir Keir, define working class.
No, working class is families that work for their living, earn their money through going out to work every day, not through other means.
Middle classes do that?
Well, working class families have the ordinary hope to get on in life. I mean, this has been the story.
Don't middle classes have that?
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do.
So what's the distinction?
People will say to me, "Well, look here, you've come a long way."
Yeah, but you went to state school.
Yeah, but that is the ordinary hope of the working class, which is to have a decent education, to get a decent secure job, to get a car, to get have a nice holiday, to have a house.
Isn't that the middle class too, Sir Keir? Everything you just listed? No?
It is. Yeah, it is. And that's why many people go on their life journey from what you might call working class to middle class.
Remember when Starmer spent a lavish 7-day stay at a penthouse in Covent Garden with his family? The cost? A cool $2,437,000. But wait, it gets even weirder. Starmer admitted to using Lord Ali's $44 million townhouse for election strategizing. You know, just casually borrowing a mansion for political purposes. No big deal, right? And he didn't even pay for it. Yep, you heard that right. No money changed hands. Starmer justified the stay by saying it was for his son to study without distractions. Shouldn't every kid in the UK get that luxury? Now, here's where it starts to feel like we're in some twisted political soap opera. Starmer has repeatedly said that we're all in this together. But let's be real. How does that work when the PM is living it up in designer gear, racking up free football tickets, and staying in fancy penthouses while the rest of the country is struggling with tax hikes and rising costs? Starmer arrived at Downing Street with promises of change, but the only change we're seeing is in his wardrobe. He's been dubbed the king of freebies, and the numbers back it up. Since 2019, Starmer has received gifts totaling over $40,000. Let that sink in for a second. The man who's supposed to be leading the UK through tough economic times is out here accepting tens of thousands in freebies, while regular folks can barely make ends. And if you think it's just the British public who are outraged, think again. Even other MPs are calling him out. Some are questioning how he can justify taking all these freebies while preaching austerity to everyone else. It's a classic case of do as I say, not as I do. Of course, scandals like this don't just blow over, they leave scars, and Starmer is definitely feeling the heat. The media, MPs, and even former prime ministers are piling on. Boris Johnson in particular couldn't resist taking a jab, calling Starmer greedy for his apparent obsession with freebies. And let's be honest, when Boris Johnson calls you greedy, you know things are bad. The optics here are terrible. How can you expect to govern a country when you're accepting tens of thousands in gifts from wealthy donors? It makes people question whose interests you're really serving. Are you in it for the people or the perks? This scandal isn't just about Starmer living large, it's about trust. People want to believe their leaders are fighting for them, not out for themselves. And here's the thing, Starmer isn't just accepting these gifts, he's doing it with a sense of entitlement. He acts like it's no big deal, but it is a big deal. When you're in a position of power, every move you make is scrutinised, and Starmer's lavish lifestyle is sending all the wrong signals.
Over the weekend, I took a microphone and a camera to a high street, and I spoke to a load of pensioners that, you know, some voted Labour, some didn't. But the anger out there is so high. They cannot believe what this government is doing. The optics is terrible. They are living the high life. Keir Starmer has had more freebies than any other MP over the last 5 years. I mean, after what he said in interviews and in Parliament, this is the biggest hypocrite in politics. It's such a bad look. And they are so out of touch with the normal people of this country. And I would have thought they would have given it a year or so, you know, before they decided to act like this. But it's after weeks. They've got no shame.
Get this, Keir Starmer might have thought that leading the country would be a smooth ride after his election win, but reality has hit hard, and it's clear that things aren't going as planned. Despite his initial confidence, the cracks in his government are starting to show, and it's making many people question his ability to steer Britain in the right direction. Starmer's been struggling to keep up with the demands of leadership, and his decisions seem to be making things worse rather than better. It's not just the opposition that's critical of him. His own party members and allies are feeling the strain too. Starmer, who came from a legal background, seems uncomfortable with the cutthroat, high-pressure environment of politics, and it shows. This isn't just a matter of small teething problems. Some believe the issues run deeper, hinting that the government lacks a clear, overarching vision for the country. As Labour's honeymoon period fades, the cracks are becoming more visible. Some ministers are still looking for approval, unsure of their roles, and lacking the confidence needed to take charge. Starmer's own tendency to be slow in asserting his political authority has left a leadership vacuum that's making things even worse. While some allies believe Starmer will bounce back and surprise people, others are not so convinced, especially when the government has struggled to articulate what it truly stands for. Starmer's government has time on its side, but time alone might not be enough to fix the problems that are already becoming apparent. If he can't find a way to regain control and inspire confidence, Britain could be in for more turbulence. For now, it's clear that Starmer's start in power has been far from smooth, and unless something changes soon, the future looks even more uncertain for the country. This isn't just about early stumbles. There's a real risk that Starmer's government could unravel further, leading to more political chaos in the months ahead. And in this environment, the stakes couldn't be higher. The harsh truth is that Starmer isn't delivering on the promises that brought him to power. If anything, he's delivering more of the same, and that's bad news for a country desperately looking for hope, growth and relief.
Hear me when I say this. No more money without reform.
I'm not prepared to see even more of your money spent on agency staff who cost £5,000 a shift, on appointment letters which arrive after the appointment, or on paying for people to be stuck in hospital just because they can't get the care they need in the community.
We're talking about an NHS that's been crumbling under pressure for years, and Starmer, instead of boosting funding or delivering radical solutions, is seemingly just towing the old Tory line. Poverty rates, sky high, and the two-child benefit cap that hits the poorest families the hardest, still in place. The government is saying there's no money to fix these problems, blaming a black hole in the finances that feels more like an excuse than a real problem. But here's the kicker. Even though Starmer says he needs $22 billion to balance the books, that's pocket change compared to the massive wealth held by the richest in the UK. We're talking trillions sitting in the hands of the top 1%, yet the pain continues to be felt by those at the bottom. What's worse? The future looks more like the same. Starmer's already told us to expect more pain under his leadership. That's not exactly the hopeful vision we were promised, is it? Instead of making the hard calls that would raise taxes on the wealthy or borrowing what's necessary to rebuild our public services, he's playing it safe. He's sticking to a conservative agenda that only patches things up on the surface, while the real issues continue to fester underneath. This wait-and-see approach might work in some cases, but for Britain, time is running out. The problems are mounting: a growing population, worsening public services, rising inequality, and a climate crisis that can't be ignored. Starmer was supposed to be the guy with the answers, the fresh energy to steer the ship in a new direction, but instead, it's more of the same drift we've seen for years. And with that in mind, the outlook for Britain is, to put it bluntly, pretty dark. So what do you think about Starmer's confession? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.